happen despite the exams being conducted in various states, as far as you have certain mechanism to ensure that the quality is ensured in every state.
Okay. Rachna, would you like to take that one? Kriti basically feels that if you want to control the quality of the examination, then it can be done individually. Why centralize something which is decentralized?
Yes.
I mean, that's the essence of democracy, decentralization.
See, here is the thing. I mean, if you... Exactly. And I agree with ma'am as it is, but there is a slight
Kriti.
point here.
Yeah.
Here, what I'm trying to say is that even with decentralization, the state public service commissions, as opposed to the Union Public Service Commission, in quite a lot of states, the process might again become, due to this decentralization, the process might again lose its uniformity, because there are certain state public service commissions that are extremely well equipped, extremely well informed, have a lot of experience and are absolutely streamlined. And then there are certain public service commissions that are a havoc, a chaos to deal with. I know it because I'm a service lawyer. I deal with employment law on a regular basis. So that is the reason why I would, if I had to bat, I would bat for a centralized judicial service system, because there is one experienced, streamlined, centralized service that will take care of all the thousands or probably lakhs of vacancies in all the states. And let the central body monitor what these state bodies, state public service commissions are doing. I think in that way, we get the cake and get to eat it.
Why would high courts allow this? See, I think Rachna, the problem over here is, why will high courts allow something
now,
like
that's
this?
the point.
It's like me having power and relinquishing that power. Why? So then we are back to square one. We are back to a situation where the UPA government drafted a bill in 2012, got shelved. The Chief Justice's conference mentioned it in 1961, 63, 65, shelved. Right? Law Commission proposed it in the 14th, 77th and 116th report, shelved. And now 20 days back, the Supreme Court rejected a PIL. So the courts are not in the mood. So then what do we do? Be stuck with the old system?
See, I think here, I mean, if I can talk, hello? Sorry. I think here it is more of a concern of separation of powers and checks and balances. I mean, just like the Supreme Court rejected the NJAC, I do not believe that either the Supreme Court or the High Courts would allow any kind of an infringement, even if conciliatory or friendly, to help ease its burden as far as the lower judiciary is concerned. I mean, because they have systematically and for a long time been in charge of the lower judiciary and its appointments. I don't think they would look at, because they did not accept the NJSC, which relates to the higher judiciary. I do not believe that they would. I mean, some of the high courts, I mean, I know for a fact that several of the high courts are overburdened with caseloads itself. Other than taking care of recruitments and all. I think some of the high courts would welcome it, but most of them, I think, would think of it as some kind of an infringement on their right of
and then obviously it defeats the purpose. No?
Any which
it
way
defeats
it has
the purpose,
to go
because
through.
you cannot. Then you will not be able to.
Yes.
Yeah, Adit Pujari, do you see? I mean, there is a need. Rachna Reddy says there is a strong need why a centralized system must exist. She's speaking out of experience. But then if some states agree or some high courts agree and others don't, then it defeats the whole purpose. It's like the an implementation of GST where half the things are not there in the ambit. Just drawing a parallel.
On that, it's great to have this debate on a macro level, but if you want to look at the kind of questions faced at a micro level, it's going to change things around completely. So for instance, if qualitatively a judge in Uttar Pradesh is going to be selected, nobody is going to look at the law, say, on anticipatory bail, which is deleted from the statute book in Uttar Pradesh. Whereas in Delhi, which is only a border away, you have anticipatory bail on the statute book. So why have an AIJS where a judge in Delhi is required to know how exactly your anticipatory bail process and procedure is going to go on, as opposed to in Uttar Pradesh where that is completely redundant to know? or for that matter Uttarakhand.
Okay.
So the whole point of this debate is that look, the laws change across states, across borders. So by having a uniform examination, you're actually going to create a problem for judges themselves and for framers of the question.
Okay, it's very clear. It's very clear. Thank you very much. I would request Ketan, Kriti as well as Adit to stay on. Thank you very much, Rachna, for joining us in part 1 of this debate. It's very clear that this impasse continues.
Thank you so much.
And that is not good. I mean, as far as filling up vacancies is concerned, there has to be some mechanism with which, 25,000 judges required in this country. This has to be spoken about. There has to be a method with which you have the people at the helm, at the top, taking this very seriously. This affects one and all. 2.7 crore pending cases. It affects one and all. Let's now move to part 2 of the debate on India Ahead Now. million active users, 24 lynchings. These statistics should help you understand the fake news menace that has plagued India. The move to forward news without checking has taken over most of our phone life. Now, in a move to curb fake news, the government is now seeking to propose amendments to the Information Technology Act. Here's a primer.
So what is the government asking? The government seeks changes to trace and access unlawful online content. Amendments proposed to break encryption in messengers. Proposed amendments published by Internet Freedom Foundation. Social media platforms to respond to government's query in 72 hours. Tech-based automated tools to identify and remove unlawful content. Now this comes at a time when the job at hand for the government is manifold. Fake news, mob lynchings, terror outfits. Just today, the IG National Investigative Agency, Alok Mittal, while addressing the media on the arrest of ISIS suspects, said the terrorists used WhatsApp and Telegram for internal communication, a conversation that was end-to-end encrypted.
आज हम लोगों ने एक आईसिस इंस्पायर्ड मॉड्यूल जो है उसके कनेक्शन में दिल्ली में और यूपी में कुल 17 लोकेशंस पे सर्चेस की हैं। सर्चेस के दौरान भारी मात्रा में एक्सप्लोसिव्स मिले हैं, वेपन्स मिले हैं, एक कंट्री मेड रॉकेट लॉन्चर मिला है, सिम कार्ड्स मिले हैं, फोन हैंडसेट्स मिले हैं और इस तरह के पाइप्स मिले हैं जो कि बॉम्ब बनाने के लिए जितना जरूरी सामान है, जैसे अलार्म क्लॉक्स हैं, 9 वोल्ट बैटरीज हैं, ये सारी मिली हैं और इनके आधार पर जो अभी तक जो केस में हमने इन्वेस्टिगेशन किया, इसके आधार पर हमने 10 लोगों को गिरफ्तार किया है।
Now, even as the government would justify their move to curb fake news, the move comes days after the government's Snoopgate move, which proposed to access any computer that is under use. So then, is this the government's move to become the big brother? The government further suggests a monthly notification to warn users repeatedly and a traceability requirement. As per reports, the draft rules were discussed on Friday between the government and the representatives of Google, Facebook, WhatsApp, Amazon, Yahoo, Twitter, ShareChat, SEBI and the Internet Service Providers and the Association of India. The companies now have been asked to get back on the proposal on January 7th and only then a decision will be taken. Bureau Report, India Ahead.
All right. Ketan Paul is still with us, Kriti Awasthi, Adit Pujari, and Tarun Wig, the cyber security expert, is also with us. Thank you very much for those who stayed on. Ketan, I'm going to begin with you. Now, we've got a graphic representation which we'll be putting out on the screen in just a short moment. what the Supreme Court said and what the government has done. My point is, if the government does not act, there is an allegation that they are not acting to contain fake news. If the government acts, there is an allegation of, okay, let's take a look at those graphics. Government actions in line with the Supreme Court directions. I'll come back to you in just a short moment. So SC on the 27th of July said, the duty is of the centre and states to take steps to curb fake news on social media. Right? What did the government do? Rule 3.5, which is an addition to the IT Act. It says social media intermediaries should provide information and assistance required by lawful order. Right? Implementing what the Supreme Court said. Then Supreme Court on the 11th of December said, government may frame necessary guidelines of the standard operating procedures and implement in 2 weeks. Dutifully comes in Rule 3.2b, which says intermediaries should publish rules, privacy policy to stop users from posting objectionable material. What is wrong, I ask. Then the Supreme Court on the 28th of November said, Solicitor General informed court that intermediaries need to take certain actions. Comes in Rule 3.7 of the IT Act, appointment of nodal person for coordination with law agencies. I feel that whatever the Supreme Court asked the government to do in terms of strong action against fake news, at least a step in that direction has been taken. Now, of course, the debate can take place on whether these steps are enough or they give sweeping powers, the snooping allegation, right? That is the discussion that we are going to have. Now, let's place the arguments one by one, which is very, very significant. So, government actions in line with Supreme Court directions, but however, there are two parts or two basic theories or points of conversation. One is that this is a fight against fake news, and the other says that this is the snooping Sarkar at it again. So those who feel that this is a fake news fight say that it allows agencies to track suspicious activities, but those against say that the government is trying to snoop on citizens' personal data. Those who say that this is action on fake news say access only in cases of threat to security, sovereignty of India. For those who argue that this is charges of snooping, they say this is an attack on freedom of speech and expression. Now, which side are you on, and is this not a necessary solution, especially at a time when we are struggling with fake news and the government has been found wanting in its action against fake news? So, Ketan Paul, I now want to come to you. Where do you stand in this issue, my friend?
Is done is to flag a problem and ask the government to solve it in a particular way.
Yeah.
Now, how that exactly is done is now up to the government, which is where all these allegations of snooping and so on come on. Because there are many ways to do this, and there can be ways which may intrude on citizens' privacy and so on.
No, for instance, let's talk specifics. Rule 3.5 says social media intermediaries should provide information and assistance required by lawful order. What is wrong, I want to know.
Okay, so
under the Indian law, if the government wants to know who is propagating fake news, should it not have the right to know?
Yes, in very defined circumstances, yes. But those circumstances have not been defined as yet. So let's take a step back. Before any of this comes in, the apprehension always is that government is trying to snoop. And why is there that apprehension? Because we don't have any form of statutory framework to protect the privacy.
So that's the next solution. You have to have a statutory framework.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that is where the apprehension. If that had already been done, none of these problems would arise.
But my point is, how do you act against? See, the problem is now. The fake news fight is now.
Yes.
Right? So the fight has to begin now. And legally, the government has to arm itself for that fight. Right? Tarun Vig, I want to come to you. Where do you stand on this issue? Do you think that this is walking over that thin line? Or is the government fully in league with what it is doing?
So let me ask you a question. All of us know that Google is reading our mails. So is Facebook, reading our messages, reading even WhatsApp messages for that matter. Now my question is, Google reads our mails, they check our timeline activity, they check our routes, and they say that they are doing it so that they can provide us with a better service. Government says that they are providing us a better service in terms of national security. So if we agree to Google doing it, and if we have no problems with that, then why should we have a problem with the government doing it? Secondly, it's not as if it's a blanket order. You know, there are rules and checks and balances in place. Today, if the government wants to access data of any individual, me for that matter, the letter has to be signed, that authority letter, authorization letter has to be signed by the Home Secretary before my calls can be recorded and so on.
Yeah.
So they have taken